History remembers her as Bloody Mary, the queen who burned hundreds at the stake, the woman whose name became a warning, whispered across England for generations. To many, she was simply a monster in a crown. But what if she wasn't born a villain? What if the road to those fires began with a little girl who lost everything? A daughter separated from her mother, a princess declared illegitimate, a woman who spent her life searching for love and never truly finding it. This is the story of Mary Tudor, not the legend, the woman. Mary Tudor was born on February 18th, 1516, at Greenwich Palace, the only surviving child of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. Though England wanted a prince, her birth was celebrated. She received an exceptional education, mastering languages, music, theology, philosophy, and statecraft. Intelligent and disciplined, Mary grew up believing she was loved and destined for greatness. Then everything changed. Desperate for a male heir, Henry VIII sought to end his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. When Anne Boleyn entered his life, he challenged the Pope, broke from Rome, and created the Church of England. To justify the divorce, Henry declared his marriage to Catherine invalid. That decision destroyed Mary's world. The princess became Lady Mary. Her claim to the throne vanished. She was declared illegitimate. Henry then separated her from her mother. For years, Mary begged to see Catherine, but every request was denied. When Catherine died in 1536, Mary was not allowed to say goodbye or attend her funeral. It was a wound she carried for the rest of her life. Meanwhile, Anne Boleyn's daughter Elizabeth replaced Mary in the succession. Yet Mary never blamed her younger half-sister. She knew Elizabeth, like herself, was trapped by circumstances beyond her control. Henry eventually demanded Mary's submission. He ordered her to acknowledge him as head of the Church of England and accept her own illegitimacy. For years she resisted. Eventually, exhausted and isolated, she surrendered. The lesson stayed with her forever. Power belonged to those who held it. Everyone else paid the price. When Henry died in 1547, the crown passed to his son Edward VI. A committed Protestant, Edward pushed England further from Catholicism, while Mary remained fiercely devoted to her faith. Pressure mounted for her to abandon Catholic worship. She refused. By 1553, Edward was dying. Determined to prevent a Catholic succession, he named Lady Jane Grey as his heir instead of Mary. After decades of being pushed aside, Mary fought back. She escaped to East Anglia, gathered supporters, and claimed her birthright. The response was overwhelming. Nobles switched sides. Support for Jane collapsed, and after only 9 days, her reign ended. On July 19, 1553, Mary Tudor was proclaimed Queen of England. After a lifetime of humiliation, the forgotten princess had finally become queen, but the hardest chapter of her story was only beginning. When Mary entered London as queen, crowds cheered. The daughter once branded a bastard had claimed the throne. But Mary saw her reign not as a reward, but as a mission. She believed God had preserved her for a purpose. She intended to restore England to the Catholic faith and undo the religious changes of her father and brother. At first, many welcomed her, but England had changed. A generation had grown up Protestant, and religious divisions ran deep. Still, Mary pressed ahead. At the same time, she pursued a more personal dream: marriage. At 37, she had spent much of her life isolated and alone. She hoped to build a family and secure the future of her dynasty. Her choice was Philip of Spain, son of Emperor Charles V. The marriage promised political strength, but Mary hoped for something more. She hoped for love. They married in 1554. For a brief moment, Mary believed happiness had finally arrived. But Philip viewed the marriage as a political alliance. He remained distant, while Mary devoted herself completely to him. Then came what appeared to be a miracle. Late in 1554, Mary announced she was pregnant. England celebrated. Church bells rang. Preparations began for a royal heir. Mary was overjoyed. A child would secure her dynasty, strengthen her marriage, and fulfill her deepest hopes. But the birth never came. The pregnancy was false. The humiliation was devastating. Foreign ambassadors mocked her. Courtiers whispered, Philip grew even more distant. As her personal dreams collapsed, her religious mission hardened. Mary sincerely believed Catholicism was the path to salvation, and that Protestant teachings endangered souls. In 1555, her government revived heresy laws. Protestants who refused to recant were arrested, tried, and burned at the stake. The execution spread across England. Among the most famous victims were Hugh Latimer, Nicholas Ridley, and Thomas Cranmer. For Mary, Cranmer's execution carried personal significance. He had helped annul her parents' marriage and declare her illegitimate. Yet the burnings achieved the opposite of what she intended. Instead of restoring Catholicism, they created Protestant martyrs. Stories of courage and suffering spread throughout the kingdom. Public opinion turned sharply against the Queen. People began whispering a new name, Bloody Mary. Mary believed she was saving souls, but conviction and cruelty had become intertwined. The little girl who had once suffered injustice now possessed absolute power, and she used it in ways that terrified many of her subjects. The transformation had taken decades, years of humiliation, loss, loneliness, and fear. But intentions could not erase consequences. By the middle of her reign, the fires had become the defining image of Mary Tudor's rule, and the legend of Bloody Mary was taking shape. As the burnings continued, Mary's world began to unravel. Her health declined, her popularity collapsed, and the future she dreamed of seemed farther away than ever. In 1557, Philip returned to England, and Mary once again believed she was pregnant. The court prepared for the birth of an heir. Mary allowed herself to hope, but history repeated itself. The second pregnancy was another illusion, another heartbreak. Soon afterward, Philip left England again. Then came another disaster. In January 1558, England lost Calais, its last possession on mainland Europe. The loss shocked the kingdom. Many blamed Mary. Many blamed Philip. Mary was devastated. By now she was physically and emotionally exhausted. Her health deteriorated rapidly as she spent increasing amounts of time in prayer and reflection. Yet one final reality haunted her: Elizabeth. Unless a miracle occurred, her Protestant half-sister would inherit the throne. The very outcome Mary had spent years trying to prevent was becoming inevitable. Their relationship had grown strained by politics and suspicion. Mary feared Elizabeth could become a focus for Protestant opposition. At times she placed her under surveillance. At times she considered stronger action. But she never crossed the final line. Elizabeth survived, and as Mary's health failed, the future became unavoidable. On November 17, 1558, Mary Tudor lay dying at St. James's Palace. She was 42 years old. No child, no secure Catholic dynasty, no loving marriage, no lasting religious settlement. Everything she had fought for was slipping away. Before her death, she acknowledged Elizabeth as her successor. On November 17, 1558, Mary Tudor died. Within hours, Elizabeth was proclaimed Queen. England looked toward a new era. Mary's reign immediately began passing into history. But her story did not end there. In the years that followed, Protestant writers helped shape her legacy. Most influential was John Foxe's Book of Martyrs, whose vivid accounts of the burning cemented Mary's reputation for generations. The image endured: Bloody Mary, the Queen of Fire, the persecutor, the tyrant. Yet the real Mary Tudor was more complicated than the legend. She was a daughter who watched her family destroyed, a child separated from her mother, a princess declared illegitimate. A woman shaped by suffering, faith, and ambition. None of that excuses the burnings. Nearly 280 people died during her campaign against heresy. Their suffering was real. Their deaths cannot be ignored. But neither can the complexity of the woman who ordered them. Mary Tudor was neither simply a monster nor merely a victim. She was both wounded and dangerous, compassionate and ruthless, faithful and destructive. The tragedy of Mary Tudor is not that she was born evil. It is that pain, fear, loneliness, and power transformed her into something she might once have hated. History remembers her as Bloody Mary. But behind that name was a human being, a broken princess, a determined queen. and one of the most tragic figures ever to sit upon the English throne.